It's not the time yet for three, though. I feel like, the third usually has to be a little bit more fun
That's
than
the
the first
snack.
two.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's only
There's
noon
rules.
my time. But if it's Eastern time, it's 2 p.m. on the Friday before Memorial Day weekend. Get a third bevy in there.
I know. I
Send
didn't
it.
think about that when we scheduled this. I was like, oh, most people are probably off work already today.
I have a meeting until 5 p.m. Eastern time. And I work East Coast hours, so I'm like, how dare you? It is an interview for someone who's going to take over some of my job. So,
Oh, okay. We love.
yeah, I guess that's fine.
So maybe we could just start off with what's new. It's been, for me, a long time since conversating with both of you. It sounds like you haven't been on a call together in a while. So what's new? Obviously, Bridget, I saw you had some news shared about your own agency going out on your own. So maybe you can start sharing a little.
I think we're staying away from the word agency just because people don't love that. So I think I'm going to go with collective of some kind. It's all about the words. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my first job was in advertising, so I had kind of always wanted to have my own agency. After that first job, I was like, this is cool. Like people I get to take, people's ideas, and even if they give people ideas, I don't know. I really like the structure of that. But all that to say, like the agency model and the way that most people work with agencies, I just feel like is a broken thing. But yeah, honestly, I was just like pretty burnt out of working at small tech companies, and that's not anything to say about any specific ones. It was just like combined, if 6 years felt like 12 years, and I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, well, like maybe I need a break. I can always go back.
I love that. Was there other points? I guess it's only 6 years, but was there other points, Bridget, that you were maybe at that point of like, I wanted to start my own collective, but it just wasn't right, or the timing?
Yeah, I was at this company called Celtic Chicago, which was my first job out of school. I worked there for 3 years, which is like a lifetime in agency. And that was the last time I had a job for multiple years. Every other job I've had since then has been like a year and a half. Sometimes some of my doing, some of not my doing. I feel like we all have that story as well. But when I left the agency, I actually freelanced for like 6 months, mostly full time with one client. I just lucked into that. But I needed health insurance, so I was like, okay, I actually need a real job, and that's how I got connected with Jacob at G2. So yeah, right before my stint in tech, I did kind of like, do I want to do this? But I was also like 24, and I was like, I don't know enough to be doing this by myself yet. I need to go internal and learn some things. And I feel like, G2 I was in content, then at Big Time I was in more on the paid side, then Postal I moved to brand, and Loop I moved to growth. So like always on the marketing side, but just like got a full range of experience. And then I was like, okay, I think I can do this now, or at least figure out like what specifically I like to work on, and try to partner with companies on, a specific offer. I'm still trying to figure that part out. I feel like I'm doing the most random work right now, but I'm also working on my own schedule, and it's been really nice to just like not be sitting on Slack wasting my life.
I think I loved your point about that you can go back. I think too many times we think two-way doors are one-way doors, and we stress about it so much where it's like, if you just leave a company, doesn't work out, go find another company. But at times it's so harder when you're in the chair of like, oh, I'm going to go on my own, and all these voices in your head probably step in. So I totally get that. It's really cool that you're doing it, and excited to see. All right,
Same.
Sarah, you're next online.
Jace. No, since me and Bridget kind of last had our shtick, I don't know, I've kind of moved out of the world of marketing technology and like what I've been calling quote unquote deep tech, which is if you explain it to your grandmother, she's not going to understand what you do kind of a thing. And I work in health tech now, which comes with really interesting problems and very antiquated buyers, and people who ask us if they can fax us stuff. But it feels like what MarTech was in like 2017 when I entered the workforce. It's very blue ocean. I'm running like a 2016 style SEO strategy right now for this business, and we're winning because nobody else is writing content. Like they haven't caught on to that yet. And so things will change, but the biggest innovation in our industry in terms of how dentists work in the mouth came out in 2000. And they're still like, new material, what is this? How do we use it? What do we do? So it feels a little bit less like you have to change the way that you go to market every single week because everything is changing all the time. And a little bit more like, how do we get the basics of marketing done really well? And like almost dumbed down, because medical professionals do not want you to supercharge or optimize or whatever.
Yeah, they don't want to watch your video podcast.
No, they do not.
They really don't.
Like, our best performing subject lines and ads are just like, this is now what we do. This now offered by Dandy. Like, you can get this with Dandy. And people are like, great, sounds good. Versus like, grow your practice, like increase cases. No, nobody cares. They want to know what we do and how we do it. And it's really almost like a boot camp of like marketing basics. Like, how do you really get specific positioning that doesn't have buzzwords in it? How do you then translate that to every single channel? And it's cool. It's fun. And Uber drivers understand what I do. So that's also a little bit more, like, it feels a little bit more real versus helping software companies sell software to other software companies. That's a little bit less invigorating.
I get that, though. That's the same kind of clients that I like when I think of people are like, what's your ideal client? I'm like, people that don't understand marketing in spaces that are not software selling to software. Like, I'll do it, that's fine, but I'd rather sell software to lawyers or software to dentists or like somebody that wants to send a fax. I'm like, oh,
perfect.
That's like,
you want to build a relationship with the people you do business with.
Yeah.
Iconic.
Yeah,
Never been
great.
done before. Like,
Please
sounds
fax
good.
Can you feel their energy? I think it's tangible. I first came across Bridget and Sara's work when I was working in SaaS in around 2021, 2022. Bridget was doing content marketing for G2, and Sara was a growth marketer at Drift, which I was a huge fan of and consumed all of their content. Seeking Wisdom was one of the podcasts I was a huge fan of, and it was a dream to have them both on season 1, and now I'm honored to have them return for a Juicy Friends episode. In this episode, Bridget and Sara touch on focusing on marketing's fundamentals like customer research and writing, not just on flashy trends, the challenges of maintaining community and identity in remote work, and the benefits of local involvement with your community, and finally the value of being introspective and finding fulfilling hobbies, not just following what the crowd's doing. Bridget is from season 1, episode 14, and Sara is from season 1, episode 19, if you want to go deeper on their insights. This is episode 3 of Friends of On Marketing, recorded on May 24th, 2024, a show where I bring friends, guests of On Marketing back on the show to talk anything. Emphasis on the anything. I wanted to get weird, and this episode delivered on that. Thank you for being here, and make sure to follow and support my friends. Their work is important, and so is yours. So reach out if you want to chat marketing, and maybe you'll get a future Friends episode. Speaking of On Marketing, next week's episode is 58 with Joe Daniels, where he shares marketing's role is to determine the core what of the message and use that to inform product development and differentiation. And the purpose of life is to become the best version of you while enjoying the journey. Before we get back to our conversation today, let's get this out of the way. All opinions shared in this podcast are the individual views of the host and friends, guests, not those of their employers or associated organizations. This content is intended for informational purposes and should not be considered professional marketing or life guidance. Listeners act on the information provided at their own risk. Thank you again for being here.
Yeah, it's cool. I also work in like a company where like we're corporate and we have like labs. Like, we have people who like make teeth in the lab. And I visited the lab and I feel like such a, can I swear?
Oh, of course. More than merrier.
I feel like such a fucking suit. Like, I walk around and these people are literally like hand painting crowns that are gonna live in someone's mouth for the rest of their life. And they're like, and what do you do? And I'm like, I built the website. Like, nothing I do matters. Cool.
Yeah.
But it just like, it feels a little bit more regulated also. Like, I don't have to be online 24/7. Doctors take like July and August off. Like, we cannot sell to them. They are not reachable. They are golfing. Like, simply, we are not going to make up that pipeline. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I feel like a lot of the people who is in my community when we were working so hard in our early 20s, like right out of college. And now a lot of us are like, I want to log on, do my job, log off. and like that's it. And so I think this is a great place for me to do that.
Do you think that was always there, or was it due to burnout or the experience of what you experienced that now or was that always underneath the surface, but you just had to play to that speed? Or
I'm not sure. I think the job world has changed, like went through like 10 years of change between 2019 and 2021. Like things shifted so dramatically. The way that buyers buy shifted, the way that companies have employees have changed, where like it felt like there was a world of opportunity for me when I was like going into an office and I was deeply ingrained in the tech industry in Boston. I just felt like it felt like a world of opportunity when I was earlier in my career. I was in a city that had very connected companies. And now with everything going remote, like it just doesn't, I'm drinking less of the Kool-Aid because it's not being presented to me. Like my first few companies was, you got to work as hard as you can because like look at this space and look at our peers and look at the people that you worked with who are now at these other companies. Like it felt more high stakes, and now it doesn't, in a good way. And like companies treat their employees like shit. So why are we supposed to show up for you when you don't show up for us? And I'm not saying that my company does. I'm just saying companies globally.
It's
the
more
royal
common.
Companies.
I feel like the more and more people I talk to, and that's people assume like I wasn't necessarily treated the best, but it also like everybody has the same story, right? Like, or some version of the same thing where they're burnt out, they're working 10-hour days, they get through more stuff, the list just gets longer. It's that like, you're good at your job, so we're going to give you more things to do. And I'm like, no, I'm doing all of this so that I can take that vacation, or so that I can have a break or whatever. But I feel like more and more people have the same stories of just being burnt out, or CEO doesn't understand marketing, but then is trying to tell you what to do. And it's like half my job then is arguing with people internally. And I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, I'm trying to get my job done so I can go sit on a beach in Italy. Like, what's happening?
Literally.
I love that. So COVID, that kind of shift really changed things a lot. And maybe there was this mimetic pull. You were around other individuals who were also working so hard, or that was the life. We're trying to hit that huge payout at the end of the day for what we're even going to do with all the money.
You did leave it at an office physically. Like, a lot of us worked in an office before and you left it there. And now that it's at home, it's like, oh, 6 o'clock goes by and I'm still working. And I'm like,
that, and like it was so much easier to commiserate together. We're like, my job sucks, but at least I like my coworkers. That sort of a vibe. And now it's like, if your job sucks, you're sitting alone in a room in your building lobby, which is
and
what
you're
I am
telling
doing
your
right now.
coworkers on Slack, which HR is definitely reading. So don't do
Or
that.
it's just like harder to vibe. Like it's just a little bit harder to like, you have scheduled calls where you talk about work, but there isn't that in between time where you like check your co-stars in the morning to make sure you're all aligned. But like I used to, like we used to do that in the office, and now it takes a lot longer. Like I'm 2 years in to this company and I'm like just starting to feel like I can vibe with like my tertiary coworkers, like the people I work cross-functionally with. So it just takes a little bit longer to feel that sense of like community within the people that you work with, and that's not a bad thing. It's just different.
Well, yeah, it makes it all about the business instead of like, I'm a person that does this job.
So something else that you were kind of touching on was how you were deploying, I think you said 2016 SEO strategies. Like that made me think, because I see it on LinkedIn, and maybe LinkedIn just, at least maybe my followers, is that kind of SaaS space, or they're always changing. Like ads now are like, I'll see an ad from someone, it's of like a podcast interview, and now that's big. So to your point, it does change so much more rapidly. But my question is that the big leagues? Like, how do you think of like, or is that just not the big leagues, but it's just like intense change because everybody's copying each other or whichever, and the big leagues are defined differently? It's the fundamentals that matter. Or do you find that like that is like the highest playing level, which means you need to constantly change, like an NBA player needs to constantly get better or whichever? Or is it just they make it like that way? And maybe the question doesn't make any sense, but I've been wrestling with that as my LinkedIn feed constantly shoves a lot of the SaaS stuff in my face, and I'm like, I don't know if that's the right thing or if that's like the pros and I'm down here in the amateur league playing.
I think when you market to marketers, the game is different. Like there's a different set of rules and there's like a different way, because you're selling their like future strategy to them. You're not selling like a product that they need to do their job necessarily, but you have to convince them that you are. And so like the people who are talking to us are trying to make us feel like there is something missing, and their course or their service or their whatever is the gap, is like what fills that gap. Versus if you sell to someone who is not your peer, the game is different. And they're not used to, they don't need to be met on every single platform where they are. They need to be met like where their intent to buy is.
With an answer.
With an answer.
Yeah.
And like for us, that's forums that have not been touched from a UI perspective since 1998. And they look it. But that's where they go and discuss, and it's like the Reddit of dentists is like these forums, and they're on Facebook, and LinkedIn is kind of useless. And, ABM doesn't work when you're selling to a single practice owner, and he is the decision maker and the budget holder, and he's also 70. Like, it's different. So I think the people who are talking to us and trying to like instill the fear of God in us are playing a different game than those of us who don't play in that arena. But when you're in that arena, you feel like that is the only like league that is happening, and it's very high stakes.
Yeah, I feel like you're right, Sarah. Like the game is different, but also the way that you play the game is different. Like you kind of alluded to, like when you're marketing to marketers, you're trying to have a net new idea and flashy things, and like even to the point of like, I think I've said this before on some podcasts, but like dark social is not real. It's just word of mouth. Like it's just brand. Like stop trying to attribute all of that. Like dark social is good branding and having a good brand on social that like is starting conversations. Like why do we've complicated it so far. I think that the leagues are, I've always just said like leagues don't exist in general, of like, if you can focus on yourself, and I look at what my biggest strengths or our team's biggest strengths or the product's biggest strengths are, how do we match those with the specific pain points, and we just focus on ourselves. And I think when you market to marketers, you're competing against every other marketing. It's not just the specific competitors that do the same thing as our product. It's every other marketing product that they would use, because the marketing tech stack is the most bloated to begin with. And I only have so much bandwidth. If we have a huge content program, or we have a huge ABO program, or we have this, like they all need separate software. But as somebody marketing to marketers, I'm competing with the other software that you already employ, the other programs that you already employ, and I'm trying to create FOMO for you, which is that's not fair. Like that's not cool. Like why are you making me feel like shit for not doing this new program that like you're saying is going to work, when what I really should be doing is focusing on what programs. Even the unfair thing is that in marketing, the unsexy marketing is the stuff that works. And like if we as marketers hate that because we like the sexy stuff, that's why everybody got into marketing. But the unsexy stuff is the stuff that actually works. And it's like, do you have the discipline to be consistent with that? And then do the 10% fun stuff on top. Or find a way to weave the fun stuff into the like unfun. But if you can just focus on yourself, like that's the winning team, the highest league, whatever, is the company's making money and finding a way to make revenue. It's not about the logos that you have. I think too with SaaS in general, I just got into this mind space of like, we're not even making real revenue. We're like doing all these handshake deals with all these other companies. We're all just customers of each other. Like, that's not real revenue, and that's not real progress. Like, great, we have those logos on our site, but how many other companies are actually looking at that and saying, great, I'm going to sign up for them because they have Gong as a customer? Like,
a lot of people, unfortunately.
It's wild. I mean, I'm a big believer in social proof, like always, but I just think that too many people get caught up in like the fancy new thing instead of consistently trying to figure out what's going to work for them.
Or trying to be the loudest person in the room, because you can be screaming from the rooftops, but if nobody knows what you actually do, then you're just yelling into a void, and people are like,
Get your ROI
God,
back.
they're
Great.
loud.
ROI on what though?
On what? Like, what are you talking about?
That was the big thing with COVID. That was like the huge swing, was like every marketing message needs to be about ROI because marketing budgets are getting slashed. And I'm like, right, but if we don't talk about what we actually offer, then like, does it actually matter?
Well, I do appreciate both of you kind of going there, because I've seen a few others on LinkedIn or in interesting places kind of just take this stance, especially of the software companies selling to other software companies, which was kind of a unique revelation for me of like, oh, okay, I guess that's how like things keep going up, is they just keep selling to each other. But I had a thought there of like the unsexy things or the fundamentals. There's this guy named Brian Johnson. He's like he wants to live forever or whatever, and he does these crazy things where he does like blood transfusions, all these things. But when he gets asked, what are the 5 things I should do to live forever, stop smoking, eat healthy, like it's the fundamentals. And I think with marketers, we kind of fall into that trap sometimes of like how to be a better human. It's like you have to do an ice bath, you have to do all these things. It's like, no, just be kind, compassionate, have empathy. It's very simple things, but like for being a good human, we do that as well. We keep trying to add more on. To be a great marketer, you need to do all that. So I like those comments, and just the fact of kind of focusing on what, because most of us aren't marketing to marketers, so you don't need to play or kind of do that. So that was nice.
The fundamentals are understanding customer research. Can you write well? Like every piece of content is going to be some kind of writing, whether it's email or whatever channel. I'm like super into this, like stop thinking about channels kind of thing. Just start thinking about the actual fundamental marketing of what you're doing, and then figure out which channels this stuff makes sense for. Like, there's no reason that you need to have a social program and post every day if you have nothing to say. You're wasting that space, and you're wasting the person's time that's posting that.
And it's like, not to be a buzzkill. Like you can still focus on the fundamentals and do creative and cool and fun work, but like you can't do crazy experimental like billboards if nobody knows who the fuck you are. Like you can't do an out-of-home campaign if you don't get anyone to your website. Like there are things that you need to do first, and like constraining a marketing team breeds creativity, and I will like die on that hill, because you need to put constraints on a marketing team, otherwise they become a service organization for the entire company and they don't do their job. Which I've worked on teams like that before. And we were so helpful until we were looking at pipeline numbers, and we were like, well, it's marketing's fault that we have a single-digit close rate on inbound leads. And I was like, confusing. But okay.
You told us if you had this one pager, it would help you close the deals. That's actually a 3-pager because you have too much information on it.
And it's like just a lot of that, where it's, to be a good marketing team, you have to have a leader who like fiercely protects the team from the bullshit, but also knows that like you have to put constraints on the team to foster like the best creativity and like remove all silos from
focus.
The internal team. Like those are like the 3 things that I would say are like most important. And like what I witnessed from a great marketing leader was like a literal bullshit shield, but would come to our one-on-ones and be like, here's what we talked about in the executive leadership team like weekly, and here's what the board meeting is like, here's what the board is asking us, and like would bring that transparency, but would shield us from being pulled into those conversations, helped us focus on one thing, and was the like mean guy by being like, no, we're not going to work on that because this is what we're working on. Do you think that your one ask is bigger than my whole team's like set of priorities right now, which is like 2 to 3 priorities a quarter? And then making sure that we were all working on the same thing to remove the silos. Like that's how any good team works. And unless you have an IBM sized marketing team, like that's kind of what you've got to do to be really effective. Because if every single person on your team is running in a completely opposite direction, you're all holding the same like rope. And that rope is just going to look like a weird, like it's not going to look like a straight line. No one's going to have a single clue what marketing's working on. And they're going to be like, what's the point? Like, why are you here? And you're going to be like, well, I had 15 minutes to stand up an influencer marketing program. Do you love that? Like, no. So, I think the good marketing comes from focus.
Yeah.
And then you can be like fun and creative and cool and funky and whatever.
Not to bring the conversation back to like changing times, but I think COVID really messed that up, because it's not that we weren't even all in the same room together, but nobody was working on the same things because everything became about efficiency. So it was like, okay, Bridget owns this channel, you own that channel, you own this. And it's like Sarah just said, like, you're all running in different directions instead of all focusing on the same problem. How it's so much more advantageous to all have 4 brains working on the same problem, solve the issue, and then figure out how to distribute or what goes into that. Or I really like the idea of like the leader giving you all the context of the board meetings so that you have it in your brain for when you're building out campaigns and programs, and you're like not Frankensteining something, but you're like, maybe we can get that in here. Like, that is a good idea. Like, the more ideas, I think just ideation has gotten lost from our marketing, because we are so focused on what's the next tactic we're chasing, what's the next thing that we need. Like, I joke about podcasts and podcast video, but every company at some point was like, we need a podcast. And I'm like,
or
but
we
why?
need a community. Who's going to manage it? And how, like, and what does it mean for you? Like, people are listening to the loudest person on LinkedIn who rarely gives you like a why.
There's no context. Yeah,
There's
it's just,
no
you
context.
should do this because it's cool.
The minute you ask like a follow-up question, oh, we have a deck on our next webinar is about that. Oh, sign up for this thing. And then they just talk again at a high level. And I'm like,
yeah,
come on,
it's
man.
It's giving TikTok shop, you know?
Oh my God. But like, Bridget, you had a LinkedIn post like a few months ago that was like, bring back large marketing campaigns. And
it's
people
true.
are like, true.
It's true. But again, that goes back to that focus thing where it's like, why would we not have all 5, whether you think you're a creative in marketing or not, at some point you picked marketing because of the open-endedness of it, because you did feel like you had some kind of creative approach to something. Like, nobody goes into marketing to crunch the numbers. Like, yes, there are marketers that are better at the growth side of it, but if you wanted to do that when you were 18, you went to engineering school. You didn't go to advertising school or marketing. And I think that everybody has, the best part about being on a marketing team is the different perspectives that people bring, and like different ideas and their different expertise and approach. And like, that's how you get a good creative campaign. And I just think that's gotten completely lost, especially in B2B SaaS, which again, like, that's when I define like what my offer is for my collective. I want it to be that creative side of just like, I think that's a cheat code, because a lot of people can't be creative, or they're too constrained, or their CEO is holding them too closely to these like revenue numbers and all these things. And it's like, there's a faster way to success. It just might be more risky. But what's more risky than having somebody sit on LinkedIn and post your blog posts every day for no reason? Like, nobody's reading that. You're wasting that space. You're wasting the 100 impressions that you get, and you're going to keep getting 100 impressions. You're never going to see it go up, because nobody wants to read your content because they already know what you're going to say to them. Versus if you try something creative, the whole point of being creative is to be unexpected, and then people are like lean into that because it's unexpected and you have a point of view already off the gate.
In how you get to the unexpected, or how you create a surprise, I believe has to involve thinking, because you can't take the template. You can't
I can't be on Slack from 9 to 5. I'm using my big brain, okay?
Yes. And I think, though, Bridget, you talked about writing being a fundamental. I really, probably someone said it, so it's not my own idea, but writing is thinking. Really, the best writers I found, the authors I love, if I got a conversation, they think well as well. So how do you both, I don't know the right way to phrase this, but I guess maintain, improve, ensure your brain doesn't go crazy? Because I think even focus is that too, where it physically nothing causes me to be less focused. It's my brain saying, I'm going to start a podcast, and then 5 weeks later, I'm good. Let's do a newsletter. Focus, I feel, has some intrinsic wrapped in with a brain that it's discipline, yada, yada. But how do you both improve your brain or keep it kind of functioning well? And I'm going to guess these are probably outside of marketing things you do, or things that have nothing to do with marketing.
Yeah, I think that was a big reason why, again, like I was like, I needed a break from this 9 to 5, because I was working too much, and then I would crawl to the couch at night, and I would just never leave the house. I would, you know what I mean? And I was like, this whole reset, like the things that I do to make sure that my brain is working is those: take the dog for a walk, go outside, go to the gym, eat well, be with your friends. Like, there are things to do, everything outside. My brain is fixed when I'm not working. So it's like, for me, finding the balance of, I actually work better when I'm working less. Like, my goal for this agency thing was like, I want to make the same amount of money and I just want to work less. That's goal one. Because I was burnt out. And that's, I think, the real definition of burnout is you can't use your brain anymore. It doesn't function. It's not working. And then you're just constantly getting yelled at by whoever telling you you're a piece of shit. Why is this email not gone out? And I'm like, I don't know, because I can't write it because I have 700 other things to do. So for me, yeah, it's just it's getting away from the work makes me better at work. And also, like, consuming content that's not in our TikTok and whatever, Bridgerton and like all these other things that, like, I need that. I need the break of that.
Yeah. New York Times games, strands, connections, and the mini crossword.
I'm a mini crossword girl too.
I also love Sudoku, but not the New York Times Sudoku. I think it's terrible, and I hate the UI. Reading fiction specifically. I don't like reading business books anymore. They could have all been an email, and there's 200 pages of fluff where they reiterate.
It's a mommy blog recipe, okay?
No, literally. Like, even the big ones, like Principles of Influence, each chapter could have been the first 5 pages, but instead there were 15 more pages in every chapter, and I was like, no, I get it. Like, I got it. Thank you. So yeah, New York Times games, reading fiction specifically, making sure I get out of my house every single day. I become friends with like small business owners in my community. Like, I'm friends with the smoothie shop guys who are friends with the boxing gym owner, and I go to both. Like, and it's just fun to talk to normal, real people who like also go out into the world every single day, because they have an actual realistic sense of like people. If you spend all of your time online and on the computer and like looking at social media, you have a very skewed sense of like what people think and who they actually are, because they're showing a highly curated version of themselves.
Right. Well, so that's where we get that echo chamber on LinkedIn, where it's like these people just sit on LinkedIn. There's no other voices in their head. It's just each other.
Yeah. And it's like, it's no fun. It's
perspective. I think you're right. Getting away from it and getting an actual perspective of the real world is important in our little lives.
At this point in our careers, working really hard doesn't equate to better work outcomes. Like, if I do exactly what my job description says, I have a better likelihood of getting promoted than trying to spread myself so thin, because then I'm not getting good and strategic at the thing I was hired to do. Follow your job description. Give maximum 85% of yourself to your job. There are studies done on that. That like you should only give 85%, because you need that other 15% to like be a human and like reset and bring better, like your best self to that like work scenario. Like,
I was talking with my therapist about this, and God bless her. We love Tiffany. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tiff.
Shout out. But it's the same thing. It's like, if you have 100 productivity points a day and you're using all 100 at work,
who's going to do your laundry?
Not Wrigley. Okay?
Homegirl doesn't even pay
She
rent.
needs a job, but she's not doing that. And yeah, it's just like that. It does get you to that, like, crawl to the couch, then crawl to the bed, then wake up the next day, and you're supposed to just do it all over again without ever filling your cup up in other ways. Like, I'm sorry, I need to see my idiot friends and go drink 3 to 7 beers. Like, they have good ideas too. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I can steal their ideas and they can help me with my job or whatever. Like, it really is all about perspective. And I think the further I get away from like the little island that is SaaS B2B, and most of my clients are SaaS B2B, but I feel like even being 1 degree removed, I have such a different perspective on like, everything's a group project. I only have to do my part of the group project. I don't need to do everybody's part of the group project. I'm not getting a gold star for it. Like, I'm only getting paid, and it's even more like the job description. Like, when you're freelancing, stay within scope. it's your job to stay within scope, because as soon as you go out of it or you do something else, then it becomes like the norm. And it's like, then I'm not getting paid for that. So stay within scope. That's the best part about contracting.
Yeah. I mean, at this point of our careers where we're like director-ish level, senior manager, whatever, getting there, like you have to play, it's now like a game. Like you have to play the game. Like before, the game was different, where it was like say yes to everything, be everywhere, be present, and like we were rewarded for that, and we were team players, and like that's what they're looking for in an entry level employee. That's not what they're looking for with a senior manager or director level person. And a lot of that like time has to be spent thinking about what you're going to delegate to everyone else, because you're responsible for the plan, but not necessarily the execution.
But the outcome, yes.
The outcome, but like you're not necessarily the one doing the work, which means that you're not spending, you shouldn't be spending all day in Marketo building a program. Like, no, you have a marketing ops person for that. Like, delegate into, yeah, I don't know. It's just a different mindset, and it's a healthier one. And like everyone who's older is like, don't work that hard. Like that's their thing that they wish that they had known when they were younger, is like, don't work that hard. You have time. And I'm not even 30 yet. And apparently, according to this society, I still have like 35 years left of my career. Like, what am I doing racing to a finish line when it's 35 years away?
Have you ever seen that, like, it's more of a like philosophical thing, but like this lady puts like the ping pong balls in like the jar, and she's like, if you focus on the little things, then like you're gonna fill it up too fast. Like it's the same with like work tasks and focus on the big things that you need to move to see any progress. If you prioritize everything at the same weight just as it comes in, you're gonna screw yourself and you're gonna be overloaded. And I don't know. I feel like there's so many, like, now that I have experienced it myself, I see it everywhere. I see everybody being asked to do too much, because also, like, maybe the leadership team doesn't know what they should be focusing on. But to Sarah's point, they shouldn't be looking up t-shirt colors. They should be focused on, like, what is the strategic plan for the company? How do we make sure that product and marketing and sales are all aligned on the same thing and we're all going the same direction? Like, that's their only job. That and go get us some more money. I don't need you to focus on what we're posting on LinkedIn. I don't need you to focus on, like, I got that part. That's my part of the project. You know what I mean? Like, why are you I think, too, it's not just the ICs that spread themselves thin. I think the leadership team at some point starts spreading itself too thin too, and then it's just everybody is, and nobody has time to do the things that actually matter.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest thing for humans, is to realize the quote, what got us here won't get us there. Mm-hmm. I think too many times for the last 6 years or so, I've been deep into meditation, mindfulness. And one of the practices or thoughts is, for a full day, use your left hand, I'm right-handed, to open every door, every cupboard. And the amount of I just do it without thinking. So of course we're going to do things that have led us, I mean, that's addiction in the sense, at some point, the alcohol, whatever it was, helped us do group session, group public, but then eventually it's like that we need to change our thinking around said thing. And I love this podcast, like the marketing podcast that I do, because it's all about those fundamentals. It's not about how to run an email drip campaign that works really well, because it's like that will be gone in a year or whichever. It's like, let's think about my friend calls them higher aims. He works in risk and all that stuff, and it's impossible to ever de-risk fully anything. So it's like, rather than focusing on all of these small things that we could go wrong, like, what are the higher aims, which I'm hearing you both say, whether as a company, it's like, what are those higher aim things that we can focus on?
If you focus on those things, then the hypothetical things that could go wrong at the smaller level probably don't happen, because you're focused on making sure that they don't happen in bigger spaces.
Well, this was so much fun. It's like one word. But I do want to just end with a question around one thing that you think the listeners aren't thinking enough about that you're thinking a lot about? Does it need to be in marketing? For me, maybe that's empathy. I don't think enough people are talking about that with all the world stuff going on. I do think there are enough. But what is that thing for you that you just want to offer up for people to say, maybe this is a higher aim and should deserve a little bit more focus, attention, or even just respect in and of itself?
It's definitely not work related, but like but like getting involved in your local community, like going to your like, do you have a library card? Sometimes they have really cute designs. Mine has a bear on it. Like, obsessed. Go to they have free printers. I can print for free as much as I want at the local library. They have a tool library where I can like rent a saw. Like, there are so many things that are like quote unquote optimizations to your life that you can find within your local community that I think are just like, that bring you back to earth also, because then you like surround yourself with people in real life and not people on the internet who are only showing you half of themselves, and they're not showing you their full self the minute you walk into the library. But still, like, go outside and like be a part of where you live. I think you'll learn a lot that you can bring to work, but I think it'll also be like a relaxing time, a more relaxing time than like sitting at your house and like scrolling on your phone. So that's my plan for this summer. Also, like going to my farmer's market, all that stuff.
Kind of related, and like maybe a good metaphor for the entire, like what we were talking about with like the FOMO stuff is like, figure out what you like be more introspective. Like, I think that our society in general, but especially online, like we're constantly told like you should be into pickleball, and then this month we're doing this, and then this month we're doing that. It's just like, go learn something new for yourself. But like, if you want to read books, then lean into that. It's not weird. Like, I think everybody's so nonchalant or doesn't want to be like really into something because it's nerdy, and I just feel like we've lost that. I don't know. Especially like growing up, like as kids, like people, they're so into these like super niche things that it's like, how did we lose that as adults? But also like it makes me feel like me, and then I know how to show up in different spaces. And to Sarah's point, when you're out in the community and doing things that you like to do, you'll find people that you're supposed to be surrounded with instead of looking to people on the internet to tell you what you should be doing with your life. I just think that people need to be a little bit more bullish in like their hobbies, and like maybe just go find a single hobby and start there.
I think like remote work was a really lovely change, but we weren't like prepared for the change because so much of our personality and how I spent my time was at work, after work with work people, before work with work people, like at the gym because it was directly across the street from the office kind of a thing. Whereas now we have the opportunity to figure out...
To do anything.
to figure out what we want to do.
I'm flying airplanes because it's like, sure, why not?
I went to a ballet class, like an adult ballet class. What a hoot. Like, what a hoot. It's just like, it's very cool to have this time back. And I just don't know that we knew what to do with it, like as adults, because we were just told like you work and then you have after work drinks. Sorry. Hello. And then you go to like networking events, and that takes up so much of your free time.
It's an identity thing.
Yeah. And now your identity can actually be who you are. And it's hard because people are like, bring your full self to work and be totally authentic online. And I'm like, I am a highly curated version of myself in both of those places.
I'm like, you don't actually want that.
You don't. You do not.
You do not need me to show up authentic. It's really to your benefit, actually, that I'm this person today.
So it's cool, but we don't know what to do with ourselves. I think we're still figuring it out.
Oh, those are two really good ones. So, Bridget, you kind of touched on, I think a lot about this mimetic theory. I didn't know much about it till I read a book that essentially most of our desires are mimetic, aka that they're mirroring or mimicking another person's desire. This person goes to this place for a vacation. I now mimetically, not really knowing, but I'm going to go. And I saw that in my own life with like my boss going to some Colorado place. And it's like, you had never mentioned that till another business owner also went out there. But so I think as kids, to your point, mimetic, it's less like prevalent. I feel kids just do what they want. They wear their hair. And then as we get in groups and tribes and we connect, it's like, I don't want to be the one to stand out, because back in the day that would kill me, essentially get me out of the town center. So it's ingrained in us. And I think mimetic theory has some play of that, of just the first step is like, holy crap, a lot of what I desire isn't from Jordan. It's from my parents. It's from this person, that person. And that's okay. But awareness is a first step. And I think, Sara, you talked about, there's this concept called locatos, which is all about this thing of giving back to the place you're at, which is, they have that a campsite, right? Make your campsite better than when you came or whatever. But I think with the digital space, we've really have just abandoned that. It's like, I'm going to make the digital world better. And it's like, you posting daily is not making the digital world any bit better. It's, if anything, doing the opposite. So like, get involved with your community, go to a soup kitchen, like do things in real life. And I think I love neither of your answers were anything online, unless you read your digital book, but still, it's like none of it's online. Go outside in the world. I love that. That's so
I think Sara and I are both physical book people.
There we go.
I do have a Kindle, but I do also have a book of the month subscription. So I'll get you a girl who can do both. I'll read it both ways. My mom has a Kindle and she only plays games on it though. So she's
Love that. I love that for her.
Wow. This was so much fun. Thank you both for coming back on and doing this. This was really fun, both on a learning side of it, but even just seeing you two kind of connect. That was awesome. So thank you both.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
And this is the end of the podcast.
Fabulous.
What one idea or topic of conversation stood out to you today? Write it down, share it with a friend, post on social. The main thing is take action. That's how we go from theory to mastery. We need to practice. We need to put it into practice. Thank you for listening and being here, and I hope you tune in next week.